The hot sand burned against Nara's face as she slowly opened her eyes. The twin suns of Calros 7 blazed overhead like angry orange eyes in a pale yellow sky. Her head throbbed with pain and her mouth felt dry as dust. She tried to remember how she got here, but her thoughts felt fuzzy and unclear. Nara pushed herself up on her elbows and looked around. Endless dunes of red sand stretched in every direction. The air shimmered with heat waves that made everything look like it was dancing. There was no sign of the transport ship that brought her here. No sign of her family. No sign of anyone. She was alone. The memory came back to her slowly like a bad dream. The argument with her father. The refusal to marry Commander Johann from the military caste. The look of shame and anger in her mother's eyes. Then the long ride in the transport ship with guards who would not look at her or speak to her. "You have brought dishonor to our family line," her father had said with cold eyes. "You refuse your duty to our people. You reject the match that would bring us power and status. There is no place for such selfishness in the Vorthon Empire." The Mo ship had landed on this desert planet in the middle of nowhere. The guards had pushed her out with just basic survival gear and 3 days of food and water. Then they flew away without a word, left her here to die alone under the burning suns. Nara stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak and shaky. The environmental suit they gave her was basic, but it would keep her alive for a few days. Maybe a week if she was careful. The cooling system hummed quietly against her back. It would not last long in this heat. She looked at the small pack they left with her. Water recycler, food bars, basic tools, emergency shelter, a small medical kit. It was enough to keep someone alive for maybe 5 days on a world like this. After that, she would die slowly of thirst and heat. The Vorthon way of exile. Clean, final. No blood on their hands, but still a death sentence. Nara picked up the pack and started walking. She had to find shelter before the suns reached their highest point. The heat would kill her in minutes if she stayed in the open too long. As she walked across the burning sand, she thought about her life before this moment. She had been a good daughter for 25 years, studied engineering like they wanted, learned to fix ships and machines, made her family proud with her skills. But when they tried to make her marry a man she did not love just for political power, she had said no. One word. No. That was all it took to destroy her entire life. The Vorthon Empire was built on order and duty. Everyone had their place. Everyone followed the rules. Marriage was not about love or choice. It was about making the right connections, building the right alliances. Her engineering skills made her valuable as a wife to someone important. But Nara wanted to choose her own path. She wanted to use her skills to build things and fix things and explore new worlds. Not to be a pretty decoration for some commander's career. Now she would never do any of those things. She would die alone, on this empty world, because she dared to want something different. The sand ahead of her was littered with strange shapes. As she got closer, she realized they were pieces of old spaceships. Crashed vessels and broken parts stuck up from the dunes like the bones of dead giants. Some of them looked very old, others seemed more recent. Nara felt a tiny spark of hope. Where there were crashed ships, there might be supplies, maybe even working equipment. Her engineering training kicked in as she studied the wreckage. Most of it was too damaged to be useful, but some pieces looked like they might still work. She found the remains of what looked like a Vorthon cruiser half buried in the sand. The hull was cracked open, but part of the crew section seemed intact. Nara used her tools to pry open a maintenance hatch. Inside, it was cooler and darker. Perfect shelter from the burning suns. The ship's power was dead, but there were emergency supplies scattered around the crew quarters. More water. Some food that was still good. Basic repair tools. It would buy her more time, but not much. As she explored the wreck, Nara found something interesting. The ship's computer core was still intact. If she could get power to it, she might be able to send a distress signal. Maybe someone would hear it. Maybe someone would come. But who would come to help in exile? And even if they did, what then? She could never go back to Vorthon space. Any ship that picked her up would probably just sell her to bounty hunters or turn her over to the Empire for a reward. Still, she had to try. The alternative was giving up and waiting to die. Nara spent the rest of the day working on the ship's systems. Her engineering skills were rusty from months of doing nothing but social training for her planned marriage. But slowly, the knowledge came back to her. How to connect power cells, how to bypass damaged circuits, how to make broken things work again. As the twin suns started to set, the ship's emergency power came online. Lights flickered on throughout the crew section. The computer core hummed to life. For the first time since being abandoned, Nara smiled. She was still stranded on a dead world with no way home. She still had limited supplies and no real hope of rescue. But she was alive, and she was fighting back. That had to count for something. Outside, the wrecked ship, the temperature began to drop as darkness fell. The desert world got very cold at night, almost as deadly as the heat during the day. But Nara was safe inside her improvised shelter, working by the glow of emergency lights. She did not know it yet, but far above her in orbit, a small salvage ship was detecting the energy signature from her jury-rigged power system. The ship's pilot was studying the readings with interest. Valuable technology down there in the wreckage fields, worth investigating. The pilot set course for the planet's surface, while Nara worked through the night trying to boost the signal strength of her makeshift distress beacon. Neither of them knew yet that this moment would change both their lives forever. Jiho guided his salvage ship through the thin atmosphere of Calro 7 while studying the scanner readings. The energy signature was definitely coming from the old battlefield below. His ship's computer showed dozens of wrecked vessels scattered across the desert floor like broken toys. "You sure about this, Jiho?" asked Taman through the ship's speakers. The AI's voice sounded worried. "That energy reading is pretty weak. Might just be a dying power cell." Jiho shrugged as he adjusted. "Their descent path. Maybe. But weak signals sometimes mean someone jury-rigged something back to life. That takes skill. Skilled people usually mean salvageable tech." Taman had been his partner for 15 years before the accident that killed his body and uploaded his mind to the ship's computer. Even as an AI, he still worried too much. Jiho appreciated that about him. Someone had to balance out his tendency to take risks. The wandering star touched down on a flat area between two large dunes. Sand swirled around the landing struts as the engines powered down. Jiho checked his environmental suit and grabbed his toolkit. The twin suns were just rising and the temperature was already climbing fast. "Stay in contact," Taman said as Jiho cycled through the airlock. "This world gets hot enough to cook you in that suit." Jiho followed his scanner toward the energy source. The signal led him to a half-buried Vorthon cruiser about a kilometer from his ship. As he got closer, he could see jury-rigged power lines running from external battery packs into the hull. Someone had definitely been working here recently. He climbed through a hole in the ship's side and followed the power cables. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the damaged walls. The air inside was cooler but still too hot for most species to survive long without protection. That was when he found her. The young Vorthon female was unconscious near a computer terminal. Her environmental suit was running, but the cooling system was failing. Red warning lights blinked on her chest display. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin looked pale through her helmet visor. Jiho knelt beside her and checked her vital signs. Still alive, but not by much. Heat exhaustion and dehydration. Her suit's water recycler had probably given out hours ago. Without immediate help, she would die within the hour. "Taman, I found someone, young Vorthon female. She's in bad shape." Jiho, "No. You know the rules about interfering with alien affairs, especially Vorthon business. They exile people to worlds like this for a reason." "She's dying." "She's supposed to die. That's what exile means. You help her and you make enemies of the whole Vorthon Empire." Jiho looked at the unconscious girl. Her hands were burned from working on the ship's systems without proper gloves. She had been fighting to survive, fighting to live when her own people had thrown her away to die. That reminded him of something human. "Loading her up," he said simply. Taman sighed through the speakers. "You're going to get us both killed someday with that human conscience of yours." Jiho carefully lifted the girl and carried her back to his ship. She was lighter than he expected. Vorthons were built for lower gravity worlds than this desert planet. No wonder she was having such a hard time surviving here. Back on the Wandering, Starry got her into the medical bay and connected her to life support. The ship's autodock started pumping fluids and medicine into her system. Her vital signs slowly improved as the heat stress faded. While she recovered, Jiho went back to examine her improvised workshop in the crashed ship. What he found impressed him. She had taken a completely dead computer system and brought it back to life using spare parts and creative wiring. The work was elegant and efficient. This girl knew her way around technology. He also found her personal effects. A data pad with family pictures, engineering certificates from Vorthon technical schools, and an official exile decree. She had been cast out for refusing to marry someone named Commander Johan. Political exile. The worst kind. She's waking up, Taman announced when Jiho returned to the ship. The girl's eyes opened slowly. They were large and purple like most Vorthons. When she saw Jiho standing beside her medical bed, she tried to sit up quickly, too quickly. The movement made her dizzy and she fell back against the pillow. Easy, Jiho said in trade standard. Most educated aliens could understand the common language even if they couldn't speak it well. You're safe. You're on my ship. She stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. Human, she whispered. Jiho nodded. Name's Jiho. I found you passed out in that wreck down there. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. How do you feel? She touched her throat. Her voice was rough from dehydration. Why did you help me? It was a simple question, but Jiho could hear the confusion behind it, like she genuinely could not understand why anyone would bother saving her life. You were dying, he said. Seemed like a good reason. But I am exile, cast out. I have no value to anyone, Jiho frowned. Who told you that? My family, my people, the Empire. She looked away. They were right to abandon me. I brought shame to my bloodline. What's your name? Nara. Well, Nara, your people might think you're worthless, but I saw your work in that crashed ship. You brought a dead computer core back to life with spare parts and determination. That takes real skill. Real intelligence. Doesn't sound worthless to me. Nara looked back at him with surprise. Like no one had ever praised her abilities before. I studied engineering, she said quietly. Before the exile, I was good at fixing things. Still are from what I saw. Question is, what do you want to do now? I don't understand. Jiho pulled up a star chart on the medical bay's display. I can drop you at the nearest inhabited system. There are colonies out there that don't care about Vorthon politics. You could start over, build a new life. Nara studied the star chart. And if I cannot pay for passage? We'll figure something out. Maybe you could work off the debt. My ship could use someone who knows their way around technical systems. For the first time since waking up, Nara almost smiled. You would trust an exile to work on your ship? I trust someone who fights to survive when her own people throw her away to die. That shows character. Character matters more than politics where I come from. Nara was quiet for a long moment. Where do you come from? Earth originally, but I've been out here in the border regions for 20 years. Salvage work, finding valuable things other people leave behind. He looked at her meaningfully. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones people throw away without thinking. Why are you being kind to me? The question caught Jiho off guard. Such a simple thing to ask, but she said it like kindness was something rare and precious. Something she had never experienced before. Where I come from, we have a saying, we're only as strong as we make each other. Help when you can. Build people up instead of tearing them down. Makes the whole galaxy a better place. Nara nodded slowly, like she was trying to understand a completely new way of thinking. Get some rest, Jiho said. We'll talk more when you're feeling better. No decisions have to be made today. As he left the medical bay, Nara called after him. Jiho, thank you. He paused in the doorway. Thank me by getting well. Everything else we can figure out later. Outside in the corridor, Taemin's voice followed him. You realize you just adopted an alien refugee with a price on her head? Probably, Jiho agreed. You complaining? Just observing. Humans and your need to collect strays. She's not a stray, she's crew potential. Big difference. If you say so. But when the Vorthan bounty hunters show up, don't say I didn't warn you. Jiho smiled. When did we start caring about bounty hunters? Fair point. Welcome aboard Nara, I guess. 3 weeks had passed since Jiho found Nara on Calros 7. The Wandering Star was now approaching Freeport Station, a massive trading post built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the neutral zone between human and alien space. Nara stood in the ship's workshop studying a power coupling she had redesigned. Her modifications had increased the ship's engine efficiency by 30%. Even Taemin admitted her work was impressive for someone with no experience on human technology. You nervous about the station? Jiho asked from the doorway. Nara looked up from her work. Should I be? It's the first time you'll be around other people since your exile. Lots of different species there, some friendly, some not so much. Are there other Vorthons? Probably. Freeport doesn't ask questions about where people come from or why they're there. That's what makes it useful. Also what makes it dangerous. Nara set down her tools. Over the past weeks, she had learned to read Jiho's expressions. Right now, he looked concerned about something he wasn't saying directly. What aren't you telling me? Jiho sighed. Exiles sometimes have bounties on them, dead or alive. The Empire doesn't like loose ends walking around free. The words hit Nara like cold water. She had started to feel safe aboard the Wandering Star, started to believe that maybe she could build a new life somewhere. But the Empire's reach was long and their memory was longer. Maybe I should stay on the ship while you conduct your business. Maybe. But hiding won't solve the problem. Better to face it head on and deal with whatever comes. That was very human thinking. Nara had learned that humans preferred direct action to careful planning. It should have worried her, but somehow it didn't. There was something reassuring about Jiho's confidence. Freeport Station was bigger than any structure Nara had ever seen. Kilometer after kilometer of docking bays and market levels carved into the spinning asteroid. Ships of every size and design came and went like insects around a giant hive. They docked at Bay 47C in the middle sections. As they walked through the station's corridors, Nara stayed close to Jiho. The crowds were overwhelming. Humans mixed, with Centauri traders, hegemony officials, independent spacers, and dozens of other species she couldn't identify. The air smelled of fuel and food and too many different bodies in one space. The noise was constant. Conversations in 100 languages, the hum of machinery, the shuffle of thousands of feet on metal floors. Jiho led her to a bar called the Broken Compass. It was dimly lit and filled with smoke from various alien substances, the kind of place where people minded their own business and asked no questions. Jiho! The station master Hyan waved them over to a corner table. He was a stocky human with graying hair and suspicious eyes. Heard you were coming in. Got some interesting cargo manifest for you to look at. They sat down and Hyan spread several data pads on the table. Salvage contracts, shipping requests, information about derelict vessels in various systems. The kind of work that kept independent operators like Jiho in business. Who's your friend? Hyan asked, looking at Nara. New crew member. Nara. She's good with technical systems. Hyan nodded, but his expression stayed neutral. In places like Freeport, you learned not to ask too many questions about people's backgrounds. They were discussing a promising salvage contract when a new voice interrupted them. Well, look what the solar winds blew in. Nara's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Bora was a Vorthan information broker who had connections throughout the Empire's intelligence networks. If anyone would recognize an exile, it would be her. Bora was tall and elegant, like most high-caste Vorthans. Her scales had been polished to a perfect silver shine and her clothes were expensive. She looked down at Nara with cruel amusement. Little Nara, daughter of Engineer Prime Kyung. I heard you were dead. I heard wrong. Nara said quietly. Apparently, though being dead might be preferable to what happens when certain people learn, you're still breathing. Jiho's expression didn't change, but Nara could feel the tension in his body. Something I can help you with? Boris smiled at him. Just catching up with an old friend. You know how it is. I know how it is when someone threatens my crew. Threatens? Who's threatening anyone? I'm just making conversation. But her meaning was clear. Information was Bora's business. She could make Nara's location known to the Empire for the right price, or she could keep quiet for a different price. What do you want? Nara asked. Nothing from you, dear. You have nothing I need, but your human friend might be more reasonable. Jiho leaned back in his chair. I'm listening. 10,000 credits, standard currency, and this conversation never happened. That's a lot of money. For a conversation that never happened. Information about certain exiles is quite valuable these days. Supply and demand. Jiho was quiet for a moment. Nara could see him thinking through options. 10,000 credits was more than they made on most salvage runs. Money they didn't have. Counteroffer, Jiho said finally. I'm listening. You forget. You ever saw her? In exchange, I don't tell everyone in this bar that you've been skimming credits from your clients' accounts. Bora's smile faltered. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. Had a long talk with Captain Ree last week. Funny how his payment to you was exactly 3,000 credits more than what you paid the people who actually found his missing cargo. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious reputation killer. Especially if word gets around to your other clients. Trust is everything in the information business. Bora stared at him for a long moment. Nara could see her weighing options. The money from turning in an exile against the damage to her business if her cheating became known. You're bluffing. Try me. Another long pause. Then Bora stood up smoothly. It was nice seeing you again, Nara. Safe travels. She walked away without another word. Jan whistled softly. That was risky, Jiho, making an enemy of someone like her. She was already an enemy the moment she threatened my crew. Nara stared at him. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. But the money. There's always more money. There's only one you. The simple statement hit Nara harder than she expected. In Vorthan society, people were valued for their connections and their usefulness. Disposable when they became inconvenient. But Jiho had just risked making a dangerous enemy to protect her. Why? She asked quietly. Jiho looked confused. Why what? Why protect me? You barely know me. I'm just some exile you found dying on a desert planet. Your crew, he said like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. Crew takes care of crew. Jan gathered up his datapads. You humans and your strange ideas about loyalty. Going to get you killed someday. After he left, Nara sat quietly thinking about what had just happened. In 3 weeks, Jiho had shown her more loyalty than her own family had in 25 years. More than that, he had made it clear that protecting her was worth whatever consequences came from it. Jiho? Yeah, thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still need to figure out how to deal with the bounty hunter problem. We? He looked at her seriously. You think I'm going to let you face this alone? For the first time since her exile, Nara felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for something better. Something she had never had before. A place where she belonged. 6 months had passed since Freeport Station. The Wandering Star was now deep in the frontier systems, far from major shipping lanes and prying eyes. Nara had become essential to their operations. Her modifications to the ship systems had tripled. Their salvage efficiency and her technical skills had saved them from disaster more than once. But today they faced their biggest challenge yet. That's a hegemony battleship, Taman said as the massive derelict appeared on their screens. The kind they used in the border wars 20 years ago. If even half the tech on that thing still works, we're talking about enough credits to buy our own station. The ship hung dead in space near a collapsed star system. 3 kilometers of twisted metal and burned-out weapon ports. It had been drifting here for decades, too far from civilization for most salvagers to bother with. "What's the catch?" Jiho asked. "There was always a catch with prizes this big. It's in contested space. Border patrol routes from 3 different governments pass through this system, and the ship's reactor went critical when it died. Radiation levels are high enough to kill most species in minutes." Nara studied the technical readings. "The radiation is concentrated in the engineering sections, the command areas and weapons. Bays should be safer. If we can get in through the main hangar, we could extract the navigation computers and targeting systems without too much exposure." "If being the key word," Jiho said. "You sure about this?" "The math says it's possible. Dangerous, but possible." Jiho made his decision. "Let's do it." The salvage operation took 12 hours. Nara's technical expertise proved invaluable as they navigated the dead ship's hazardous corridors. She found ways around radiation hotspots and jury-rigged power to sealed doors. Without her, they never would have made it to the valuable components. They were loading the last of the salvaged equipment when the ship's communication system crackled to life. An incoming message on a Vorthon frequency. "Unknown vessel, this is Patrol Ship Vengeance requesting immediate communication with any Vorthon citizens aboard." Jiho and Nara looked at each other. Vorthon patrol ships this far from Empire space usually meant trouble. "This is Captain Jiho of the Wandering Star. What can I do for you?" "We have received information that you may be harboring an exile named Nara, daughter of Engineer Prime Kyung. Please confirm." The voice was formal and cold. "Military protocol." They had found her somehow despite all their precautions. "What if I am?" Jiho replied. "Exile Nara is wanted for questioning regarding crimes against the Empire. You will turn her over immediately or face the consequences." Nara felt her heart sink. After 6 months of freedom, she had started to believe she might actually escape her past. But the Empire's reach was longer than she had hoped. "What crimes?" she asked over the comm channel. "Sedition, conspiracy, corruption of other citizens. Your sister Somin has confessed to receiving illegal communications from you, encouraging her to defy proper authority." The words hit Nara like a physical blow. Somin, her younger sister who had always been the perfect daughter, the one who followed all the rules and never questioned authority. What had happened to her? "I haven't spoken to my sister since my exile," Nara said. "Nevertheless, she has been charged based on your influence. She awaits judgment along with 17 other young citizens who have been corrupted by exile philosophy. Their fate depends on your cooperation. It was a trap, a cruel trap that used her love for her sister against her. Come back and face certain death, or let innocent people suffer for her choices." "I need time to consider," Nara said. "You have 1 hour. Then we board your vessel and take what is rightfully ours." The channel closed. Taemin's voice filled the silence. "They're bluffing. Has to be. No way they'd come this deep into contested space just for 1 exile." But Jiho was studying the tactical display. The Vorthon patrol ship was smaller than the battleship they were salvaging, but it was armed and fully operational. In a fight, the Wandering Star wouldn't last 5 minutes. "Maybe they are bluffing about the sister," he said quietly. "But they're serious about taking you back." Nara stared at the salvaged components they had worked so hard to recover. Enough valuable technology to buy passage to the far edges of known space. Far enough that even the Empire couldn't reach her. "I have to go back," she said. "Like hell." "Jiho, listen to me. If what they said about Somin is true, then innocent people are suffering because of me, because I chose freedom over duty. I can't live with that. And I can't live with turning you over to people who threw you away to die. It's not your choice to make." Jiho turned to face her fully. His expression was grim, but determined. "Yes, it is your crew. That makes it my choice too. You don't understand. In Vorthon culture, family obligation comes before everything else, even before friendship, especially before friendship. Good thing we're not operating under Vorthon culture then." The simple statement stopped Nara cold. For 6 months, she had been learning human ways of thinking, but some part of her still operated according to the rules she grew up with. Rules about duty and sacrifice and putting family honor above personal happiness. But Jiho was right. They weren't in Vorthon space following Vorthon rules. Out here, different values applied. Values like loyalty to people who had earned it instead of people who shared your genetics. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we run. Take our salvage, profits, and disappear deeper into the frontier. Find a place where the Empire can't follow, and leave Soman to whatever fate awaits her? Your sister made her own choices, just like you did. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. It was harsh, but probably true. Soman had always been the dutiful daughter. If she was in trouble, it was because she had finally chosen to speak up about something. Her own choice, her own consequences. The salvage is worth enough to buy us a lot of distance from here, Taman added. New identity papers, ship modifications, we could disappear completely. Nara closed her eyes and tried to think clearly. Every instinct trained into her from childhood said she had to go back, had to sacrifice herself for her family's honor, had to accept responsibility for consequences that weren't really her fault. But 6 months with humans had taught her a different way of thinking. You didn't owe loyalty to people who had abandoned you. You owed it to people who had stood by you when things got difficult. People like Jiho, who had risked his life to save her, who had protected her from information brokers and bounty hunters, who was willing to give up a fortune in salvage to keep her safe. Home isn't always where you're from, Jiho said quietly. Sometimes it's where you choose to be. The words resonated deep in Nara's chest. Home. She had been thinking of home as something in the past, something lost when her family exiled her. But maybe home was something you built instead of something you inherited. You really think we can disappear? I think we can try. And trying beats giving up. Nara looked at the tactical display showing the Vorthon patrol ship. Then she looked at the navigation console and the star chart showing the vast unexplored regions beyond the frontier. Plot a course for the outer systems, she said firmly. Jiho smiled and moved to the pilot's seat. Now you're talking. As the Wandering Star's engines powered up and they began moving away from the dead battleship, Nara felt something shift inside her. For the first time in her life, she had chosen her own path without considering what her family or her people expected. It felt terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The Vorthon patrol ship's voice crackled over the comm again. Unknown vessel, you are moving away from rendezvous coordinates. Return immediately. Negative, Nara replied. This is my choice to make. Leave my sister and the others alone. Their only crime was knowing me. You cannot escape the Empire's justice forever. Maybe not, but I can try. She closed the channel and looked ahead at the stars waiting beyond the frontier. Whatever happened next would happen on her own terms. That had to count for something. 1 year after her rescue from Calro 7, Nara stood on the bridge of the Wandering Star watching a damaged refugee transport drift helplessly in space. The ship's distress signal had reached them 2 days ago from the edge of the Kepler system. Life. Support is failing, Taman reported. I'm reading about 40 people aboard. Mixed species, but mostly Vorthon. Jiho studied the tactical display. Any Empire ships in the area? 3 patrol vessels about 6 hours behind them. Looks like they're being hunted. More exiles. The Vorthon Empire had been cracking down harder on dissent over the past months. Anyone who questioned authority or refused their assigned role faced exile or worse. The refugee ships had become more common in the outer systems. We can't take 40 people, Taman said practically. Not enough life support or supplies. We can take some, Nara said. The ones who won't survive the journey to New Harmony Colony. New Harmony was a human settlement that had become a haven for refugees from various governments. They asked no questions about where people came from and offered basic shelter to anyone willing to work for their keep. The patrol ships will catch us if we stop to help, Taman warned. Then we better work fast, Jiho said as he changed course, toward the refugee ship. The rescue operation was dangerous and chaotic. The transport's hull was cracked in 3 places and their engines were dead. Nara had to go aboard with emergency repair supplies while Jiho coordinated the transfer of the most critically injured refugees. Among them was a young Vorthon female who couldn't have been more than 16. Her name was Isolde, and she reminded Nara painfully of herself at that age. frightened, confused, unable to understand why her own people had thrown her away. "What did you do?" Nara asked, as she helped Isol into one of the Wandering Star's passenger berths. "I refused to let them sterilize me," Isol whispered. "The population control laws. They said I carried inferior genetics, but I wanted to have children someday." Nara felt sick. The Empire's policies were getting worse. Now they were exiling people for wanting basic biological rights. "You're safe now," she said gently. "We're taking you to a place where you can make your own choices." They managed to save 12 of the most critical refugees before the Empire patrol ships appeared on long-range sensors. The transport would have to continue on its own with the repairs Nara had jury-rigged. It might make it to safety. It might not. But they had done what they could. During the 3-day journey to New Harmony, Nara found herself spending time with Isul and the other refugees. Their stories were similar to her own, but somehow worse. The Empire was systematically removing anyone who showed signs of independent thinking. "How did you survive?" Isul asked one evening as they sat in the ship's common area. "I found people who valued me for what I could do instead of where I came from," Nara said, looking toward the bridge where Jiho was piloting them through hyperspace. "Humans? One human. And his AI partner. They taught me that family isn't just about genetics. It's about who chooses to stand by you when things get difficult." Isul nodded thoughtfully. "The human captain, he seems different from what we were taught about them." "They're all different from what we were taught. Individual instead of collective. They judge people by their actions instead of their breeding." When they reached New Harmony Colony, Nara was surprised by how much the settlement had grown. What had been a small farming community a year ago was now a bustling town with thousands of residents from dozens of different species. The colony administrator, Doyun, met them at the landing pad. He was a tired-looking human with kind eyes who had been dealing with refugee ships for months. 12 more?" he asked as they unloaded the passengers. 12 more, Jiho confirmed. Mix of medical and political exiles. Doyen began processing the refugees through the standard intake procedures. Identity documentation, skills assessment, housing assignments. It was efficient, but impersonal, necessary when dealing with such large numbers of displaced people. When he got to Nara's paperwork, he paused. "You're listed as a refugee under Jiho's sponsorship, temporary protective status." "That's right," Nara said. "How long have you been under this arrangement?" "About a year." Doyen looked confused. "Temporary status is only supposed to last 6 months. After that, you either apply for permanent residency or find another sponsor." Nara looked at Jiho uncertainly. They had never discussed the legal details of her status. She had just assumed she would stay with him indefinitely. "She's not a refugee anymore," Jiho said firmly. "She's my business partner and co-owner of the Wandering Star." The words hit Nara like a shock. Business partner, co-owner. She had been thinking of herself as crew, but Jiho had been thinking of her as something more important. "I'll need to see the partnership documentation," Doyun said. "We can file it right now," Jiho replied without hesitation. An hour later, Nara found herself signing legal documents that made her an official owner of the salvage ship she had been living on for a year. Under human law, it granted her full citizenship, rights, and legal protection. But more than that, it was a declaration. A statement that she wasn't someone Jiho had saved out of pity. She was someone he chose to build a life with as an equal. "Why didn't you tell me you were planning this?" she asked as they walked back to the ship. "Because it shouldn't need planning. You've been my partner in everything that matters for months now. The paperwork was just catching up to reality." That evening, they sat in the ship's common area sharing a bottle of human whiskey. Isul and the other refugees had been settled in temporary housing while they decided what to do next. "Thank you," Nara said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me as more than just someone you rescued." Jiho looked at her seriously. "I stopped seeing you as a rescue victim about 2 weeks after I found you. When you redesigned the power couplings and increased our engine efficiency by 30%. That's when I realized you weren't someone who needed saving. You were someone who needed a chance. What's the difference? People who need saving are helpless. People who need chances are just waiting for the right opportunity to show what they can do. Big difference. Nara thought about that. In Vorthan society, she had been valued for her potential usefulness as a political marriage tool. When she rejected that role, she became worthless to them. But to Jiho, she had value because of what she chose to do with her skills and abilities. Value that she had earned through her own actions. The refugees we brought here today, she said, they'll need more than just temporary shelter. Probably. Someone should help them understand that they have choices now, that they don't have to live by the old rules. Sounds like a job for someone who's been through it herself. Nara nodded. Slowly. I was thinking the same thing. Over the next several days, she spent time with Isul and the other refugees, teaching them basic skills they would need in human space, but more importantly, teaching them how to think about themselves differently. You're not exiles anymore, she told them. You're pioneers, people who chose freedom over comfort. That makes you brave, not broken. When it came time to leave New Harmony, Isul asked to come with them. I want to learn what you learned, she said. How to be valued for who I choose to be instead of what I was born as. Nara looked at Jiho questioningly. Taking on another refugee would complicate their operations, but it would also give them a chance to save someone else the way she had. Been saved. Ship's big enough, Jiho said simply, and we could use another engineer. As the Wandering Star lifted off from New Harmony with its newest crew member, Nara realized something important had changed. She was no longer just someone who had been rescued and accepted. She was someone who could rescue and accept others. The transformation was complete. She had gone from exile to partner to leader, from someone who needed saving to someone who could offer salvation. It felt right. It felt like home. 2 years after her abandonment on Calros 7, Nara stood in the command center of Haven Station, watching a fleet of 17 ships dock at the converted asteroid base. Each vessel carried refugees from different worlds and different governments, all of them seeking the same thing, a chance to build new lives free from the systems that had rejected them. What had started as one salvage ship helping a few refugees had grown into something much larger, a network of captains and crews dedicated to rescuing people who had been thrown away by their own societies. Haven Station had become their base of operations and safe harbor for those with nowhere else to go. Incoming transmission, Isul announced from her position at the communications console. The young Vorthan had grown confident and skilled over the past year working alongside Nara and Jiho. Admiral Jamin wants to speak with you. Admiral Jamin commanded the human fleet responsible for security in this region of space. His support had been crucial in establishing Haven Station and protecting it from various governments that objected to their refugee operations. Put him through, Nara said. Jamin's weathered face appeared on the main screen. He was a career military officer, but he understood the value of what they were doing at Haven Station. Nara, good to see you. I have news you need to hear. Intelligence reports indicate the Vorthan Empire is planning a major operation against refugee networks. They're calling it Final Solution. The words chilled Nara's blood. How major? Fleet-sized. They want to make an example that will discourage other exile groups from forming. Haven Station is their primary target. Jiho's voice came from behind her. How long do we have? 2 weeks, maybe 3 if they run into delays. It was not much. Time to evacuate thousands of refugees who had finally found safety. Many of them had been working to build permanent settlements on nearby worlds. Starting over again would be devastating. There is another option, Jamin continued. Officially, I can't offer military protection to what my government considers an illegal operation. But unofficially, I might be able to coordinate with certain independent defense contractors. What would that cost? Nara asked. Everything you've saved, plus a lot of lives if it goes wrong. Before Nara could respond, another voice interrupted the conversation. It won't come to that. Everyone turned to see Minji entering the command center. She was a Vorthan resistance leader who had been working to organize opposition to the Empire's exile policies from within their own territory. The resistance has been planning our own operation, Minji continued, but we need proof that exiles can build successful communities. Proof that the Empire's claims about exile corruption are false. What kind of proof? A public stand. Let them come to Haven Station. Let them see what you've built here. Show the galaxy that people the Empire throws away can create something better than what they left behind. It was a dangerous gamble. Haven Station's defenses were limited. Against a full Empire fleet, they would be vastly outgunned. But running away would mean abandoning everything they had worked to build. Nara looked around the command center at the people who had become her family. Jiho with his quiet determination. Isul with her eager willingness to help others. Taemin, whose AI consciousness provided wisdom and perspective. Dozens of other refugees who had found purpose in helping rescue more people like themselves. What do you think? She asked Jiho. I think we've been running long enough, he replied. Maybe it's time to make a stand. Over the next 2 weeks, Haven Station transformed from a refuge into a fortress. Every ship in their network contributed what they could: weapons, supplies, personnel. The human merchant fleet provided defensive platforms while other species contributed specialized equipment. But their greatest strength was not military hardware. It was the unity of purpose that brought together beings from dozens of different worlds and governments, all of them united by the belief that everyone deserved a chance to choose their own path in life. When the Vorthon task force arrived, it was led by the battlecruiser Dominion. Nara recognized the ship from her childhood. It had been the pride of the Imperial fleet when she was growing up. Unknown station. This is Commander Hayuk of the Imperial Navy. You are harboring enemies of the Vorthon Empire. Surrender all exiles, immediately, or face the consequences. Nara activated the station's communication system. Her response would be broadcast not just to the Imperial fleet, but to monitoring stations throughout the sector. This is Nara, formerly of the House of Kyung. I speak for the free citizens of Haven Station. We harbor no enemies here. Only people who chose freedom over oppression. People who were abandoned by their own governments and found new families among the stars. You are all criminals and outcasts, genetic deviants and social parasites. You have no right to exist. We have the right that all thinking beings possess, the right to choose our own destiny, the right to build communities based on merit and mutual respect instead of birthright and inherited status. There was a long pause. Then the Imperial commander's voice returned, colder than before. You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we will take what belongs to us by force. The channel closed. In the command center, tension filled the air like electricity. Everyone knew the next few hours would determine whether their experiment in chosen family and earned belonging would survive. All ships report ready, Isul announced. Defensive platforms are online, shield generators at full power. Nara looked at the tactical display showing their small fleet arranged around Haven Station. 17 ships against a task force of 40. The odds were not good, but they had advantages the Imperial fleet lacked. They knew this system better. They had worked together as a team for 2 years. Most importantly, they were fighting for something they believed in instead of something they had been ordered to do. This is probably going to end badly, Jiho said quietly. Probably, Nara agreed. Any regrets? About rescuing a dying exile from a desert planet? Not a single one. When the Imperial fleet attacked, it was with overwhelming force designed to end the battle quickly. Plasma cannons tore into the station's shields while fighter squadrons swarmed the defending ships. But Haven Station had been built by engineers and salvagers who knew how to make the most of limited resources. Hidden weapon platforms emerged from asteroid debris. Defensive mines activated throughout the system. Every ship in the defending fleet had been modified with technology salvaged from a dozen different civilizations. The battle raged for 6 hours. Both sides took heavy losses. The Imperial fleet's superior firepower was offset by the defenders' intimate knowledge of the battlefield and their willingness to take risks that regular military forces would never attempt. In the end, it was not weapons that decided the outcome. It was the arrival of Admiral Jamin's fleet along with ships from 3 other governments that had been quietly supporting Haven Station's refugee operations. This is Admiral Jamin of the Human Federation Navy. Imperial forces, you are in violation of interstellar law regarding the treatment of refugees. Withdraw immediately or face intervention by Allied forces. The Imperial commander found himself outnumbered and far from support. After another hour of tense negotiations, he finally agreed to withdraw on the condition that Haven Station be recognized as a legitimate settlement rather than a criminal organization. It was a victory, but it came at a cost. 7 ships lost. 38 people killed. Hundreds more injured. The price of freedom was always paid in blood and sacrifice. But in the aftermath, something remarkable happened. Ships from across the galaxy began arriving at Haven Station. Not warships, but transports carrying refugees from governments throughout known space. Word had spread about the battle and its outcome, about a place where outcasts could build something worth fighting for. Haven Station became a symbol. Proof that people who had been discarded by their own societies could create communities based on choice rather than accident of birth. Standing on the station's observation deck a month after the battle, Nara watched new ships arriving every day, each one carrying people who had heard the message she had broadcast during the confrontation with the Imperial fleet. The right to choose your own destiny, she had said. Those words had traveled across the galaxy faster than any government could stop them. They had reached the ears of people who had given up hope of ever being anything more than what their birth circumstances had made them. Jiho joined her at the viewing port, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Taman says we're processing about 50 new arrivals per day now. Going to need to expand the station again. Good problem to have, Nara replied, accepting the warm cup gratefully. Isol thinks we should start building permanent settlements on the nearby worlds. Give people more options than just living on the station. Nara nodded. The young Vorthon had proven herself to be a natural leader with good instincts about what refugees needed most. What do you think? I think 2 years ago I was a loner making a living, picking through other people's garbage. Now I'm helping build something that might outlast us both. Life takes strange turns. Through the viewport they could see the wandering star docked at the station's central hub. The ship looked small now compared to the massive structure that had grown around it. But it remained the heart of everything they had built, the place where it all began. Do you ever miss the simple days? Nara asked. Just the 2 of us and Taman running salvage operations? Sometimes. But then I see what we've accomplished here, and I realize this was always where we were heading. We just didn't know it yet. A new ship was approaching the station. A small transport carrying maybe 20 passengers. Another group of refugees seeking the chance to build new lives among people who would judge them by their choices instead of their origins. I should go help with the intake process, Nara said. In a minute, Jiho replied. There's something I want to say first. Nara looked at him curiously. 2 years ago, I found a dying engineer on a desert planet. Someone her own people had thrown away like garbage. I thought I was just saving a life. You were. No, I was saving a lot more than that. I was saving someone who would go on to save thousands of other people. Someone who would build something beautiful out of all that abandonment and exile. Nara felt tears forming in her eyes. We built it together. You built it. I just provided the ship and the attitude. The vision was all yours. The courage to stand up to an Imperial fleet and tell them that discarded people have value. That was you. The human values were yours. The idea that family is something you choose instead of something you inherit. That home is where you decide to build it instead of where you happen to be born. Jiho smiled. Maybe we each contributed what the other needed. They stood in comfortable silence watching the new transport dock with the station. Inside would be more people like Nara had been 2 years ago. Frightened, confused, unable to understand why they had been rejected by everything they had once called home. But they would learn, just as she had learned. They would discover that being thrown away was not an ending but a beginning, a chance to build something better than what they had lost. Ready to go welcome the new arrivals? Jiho asked. Always, Nara replied. As they walked toward the docking bay together, Nara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From exile dying alone on a barren world, to leader of a movement that was changing how the galaxy thought about citizenship and belonging. The Vorthan Empire had meant to destroy her by abandoning her on Calros 7. Instead, they had set her free to become something they never imagined possible. Someone who could offer hope to others who had been discarded by systems that valued conformity over individuality. Taemin's voice followed them through the station corridors. You know, for an AI, I'm getting surprisingly sentimental about all this. About what? Nara asked. About watching humans do what they do best. See potential in people everyone else has given up on. Build families out of strangers. Turn exile into opportunity. Not just humans, Jiho corrected. Everyone here is doing that now. Humans just happen to be the ones who showed it was possible. And that, Nara realized, was the most important thing she had learned in her 2 years among the stars. That the best human qualities, loyalty to chosen family, willingness to help strangers, the belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth, were not actually uniquely human at all. They were simply qualities that humans had never forgotten how to practice, qualities they were willing to teach to anyone ready to learn. As they reached the docking bay where 20 new refugees were taking their first steps into a larger universe, Nara understood that she had never really been abandoned to die. She had been set free to live. And in learning to live among humans who valued choice over birthright, she had discovered what it truly meant to be home among the stars.